So we just got tons of new documents and pictures from the Chapter 4 ARG. And these ones are the biggest ones we've gotten so far because they reveal the main villain for Chapter 4, Yarnaby. Now if you've been following along with the Chapter 4 hype, I'm sure you'll recognize that name right when you hear it. But a couple months ago, a couple names were leaked, and Yarnaby was actually one of them, but people were thinking Mom Entertainment was going to scrap it because it got leaked early. But it turns out they are going to use it after all because we just got tons of notes on this character, and we actually got a pretty huge clue with this character that I haven't seen anyone talk about yet. And it's from this package that Mob Entertainment left out in the woods. So because the Chapter 4 ARG has been going on for a while now, we've gotten a lot of things. One of them being this weird random audio, and it was just some random loud noise, but if you actually put it into something called a spectrogram, you got this image, where at the top it says, "See you there," and spread around the image there's a bunch of random numbers, where if you actually put them together, it would make coordinates. And it made 3 coordinates, one of them being in California, one of them being in Maine, and then one more in Missouri. But the Missouri one has actually been found today, actually by YouTuber Sheeprampage. So here's the video of him finding it and figuring out what's inside. So inside the box was a Huggy Wuggy plushie with a bunch of yarn inside the box too. And this was before we got all these documents about the Yarnaby character. But from this one clue, everybody already knew who it was for. But one thing is that the Huggy Wuggy doll actually had stitches in the middle made out of yarn. So that will eventually actually lead into my theory about Yarnaby, which I'll talk about later. But anyway, since the YouTuber Sheeprampage actually found it, he felt like there was something inside of the Huggy doll. So he went on livestream and cut it open, and here's what he found.
I have him open now. Let's see. So there's a big thing of paper. There's like a few things of paper. Hold on. I think we have it now. So there's something here. Like there's another note. Hold on. There's another note. So they were stumping stuff inside of Huggy.
He found 2 notes revealing the character Yarnaby, which I'll go over now. But then right after we got these notes, we got a couple more on the Chapter 4 ARG website. Because from these letters that Sheeprampage got in real life, we figured out that Yarnaby's code number was 1166, where if you then put that code into the Chapter 4 ARG website, it will give you these images. But anyways, here's the first note he got. But basically, the way Playtime Co is seeing if this toy is ready or not, they're making him go through all of the game station, a place that appeared in Chapter 2, with multiple different games in it that we had to complete, musical memory, whack-a-wuggy, and then lights out. So they had this new character, Yarnaby, do all these, and this is what they described what he did during those games and what they gave him out of 5. So for musical memory, he got a 3 out of 5, and they said, several mistakes, but finished with roughly par time. And then for whack-a-wuggy, they gave him a 2 out of 5, and they said, Quinn's awareness and response time leaves a lot to be desired, frequently missing their target. So it looks like they gave this Yarnaby character a grab pack, which means he does have hands. And when he was trying to hit the whack-a-wuggies, he wasn't hitting them on target. But the more important thing we got from this letter is that we officially know what Yarnaby's real name is, Quinn. They refer to him as either Quinn or 1166 in this letter. They never really call him Yarnaby. And that is kind of weird because Quinn was only at its most popular after the Hour of Joy already happened. So I thought that Mob Entertainment would have went with a name that was really popular in the 90s. And for the last one, they gave him a 3 out of 5 and said, completed the obstacle course with an expected time, but lost once he was instructed to restart. Now this page doesn't really give us a lot, it's just telling us what Yarnaby did on the test. But Sheeprampage also received another letter which is a lot like this one, but instead of it just being a random Playtime Co employee that's testing him, it's Harley Sawyer. But because Sheep didn't show it on screen for that long, I didn't have time to take a screenshot, so I'm just going to play a clip of what he said instead.
Just read it. It says, was able to outperform the previous run through despite not being able to properly handle a grab pack. What does that say? Bit the heads off several of the stuffed toys used for the game.
So it turns out that this brand new Yarnaby character was actually ripping the heads off of some of the plushies in the factory. But I think there's actually a reason he did this, and it actually goes back to Chapter 3. If you remember Chapter 3, there was a certain scene in the game where Catnap was either praying or just worshipping this shrine he made. And he made it for the prototype because he does look up to the prototype as a god. And in that prototype shrine, there was a bunch of heads from different plushies and toys from around the factory. More specifically, there's PJ Pugapillar on the shrine, and if you're wondering why that matters, this note we just went through talks about how Yarnaby did on the statues minigame. And in that minigame, the main villain you're trying to get across is PJ Pugapillar. So maybe Yarnaby was the one that actually killed PJ, but now you're probably wondering, if Yarnaby killed PJ, how would Catnap get it to put it on his shrine? But maybe Catnap actually had Yarnaby help him make this. by getting heads of the toys throughout the factory, even one of PJ. But now this next letter is actually a conversation between Yarnaby and Harley Sawyer. But before we move on, I just realized some of you might not know who Harley Sawyer is and might be new to Poppy Playtime. But basically, Harley Sawyer is the person responsible for all the experiments in the factory. All those giant monsters in the factory, they were created by him. But anyways, back to this note. It's between Dr. Sawyer and Quinn. So it seems like he's going to be talking to Yarnaby before he got turned into the monster he is. Sawyer says, "Quinn, might I ask you what you're doing?" And Quinn says, "Making my toys prettier, Dr. Sawyer." And Dr. Sawyer said, "And you think they'd be prettier without heads?" "I think so. Their heads get in the way of their bodies. But if you put Dolly's head from this body over here onto this one, see, he moves all better now." So apparently this new Quinn character likes taking the heads off dolls and putting them on other dolls, or just leaving them off entirely. And that's exactly what we see in his Yarnaby form, ripping off the heads of plushies in the Playtime Co. factory. So maybe that's what he's going to try to do to us in Chapter 4, rip off our head and we'll have to try to stop him. Now we don't know why Quinn is really behaving like this, taking the heads off dolls. Maybe it's something he saw in his past, maybe he has some sort of disease. Now, I decided not to read the entire note because I feel like it would get a little boring, and you guys might get confused at one point on whose voice I'm trying to do, Yarnaby's or Harley Sawyer's. But if you want to read the whole note yourself, here it is on screen if you want to pause the video. But now this next note, I'm just going to summarize really quick, but it talks about Yarnaby and what he's like. Basically, Yarnaby is a really strong character. Probably one of the most strong we've ever seen in Poppy Playtime, but the Playtime Co. employees wish that it was a little bit smarter, because it turns out that while this character is super strong, it doesn't have the greatest mind. That is what they say in the document word for word. But this character also does have a heart, and he cares for some of the Playtime Co. employees, and some of the Playtime Co. employees actually do have sympathy for him too. And Harley Sawyer, the person that wrote this note, says that it amuses him how this character just walks around and sits alone. Just showing that Yarnaby isn't really that evil, which is not really the route I expected them to take for Chapter 4. Maybe what they're trying to do is show how Yarnaby is actually a good character and not evil, but Harley Sawyer and the Playtime Co. employees tortured him. Because one thing that the Mom Entertainment CEO said about Chapter 4 is that it was going to be a lot darker. And this final note I'm going to go over also says a lot. And after I read it, I'm going to give my final theory on Yarnaby, what he'll do in Chapter 4, and how he'll actually end up dying in the game. So the note is from Dr. Carmine McCabe, which I don't think that's a name we've heard of before in the series. But anyways, here's what it says. "This report will ultimately serve as an echo of those prior. I report no change in the subject. He eats little, lazes about in his cell, and performs substandard on all physical tests." The rest of this note pretty much talks about how whoever this person is writing it is pretty much the watcher over Yarnaby, and saying how they pretty much give up on him because whenever they try to approach Yarnaby, Yarnaby is just super aggressive towards them. And now my final theory for this guy is that he was made as a protector, more specifically a slave that doesn't go as anything anyone tells him to. Maybe Yarnaby was supposed to be Harley Sawyer specifically slave. Maybe Yarnaby protected him during the Hour of Joy. So maybe that's why in the end of the Chapter 3 recap video, it ended with Harley Sawyer laughing, hinting that he's still alive somewhere in the factory. And something else that proves this theory of Yarnaby being a protector or a slave goes all the way back to the very first clip I showed in this video. Huggy Wuggy inside a lunchbox covered with yarn with stitches made out of yarn. Why else would he have stitches unless he got hurt? And we know that he actually did get hurt at the end of Chapter 1 because he fell all the way down. Maybe he fell to where Yarnaby is, and Yarnaby repaired him with his own yarn. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video. I really hope you guys did go on to enjoy it. If you do want to help support the channel and are excited for Chapter 4, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.